Good evening and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube channel. And it's Saturday, which means it's time for Star Trek. And today we are talking about our rivalries that we enjoy in Trek. And there's plenty of rivalries to talk about. But before we do that, I would like to welcome my friends Skeptok
Hi, everybody.
and the One Ton Hammer.
Hello.
And Mr. Irate could not make it today, but I've sent Mr. Functional the link, so hopefully he will join us. But we've got plenty to talk about anyway, so I think the three of us can carry a show. So there are so many,
Well,
so many.
there's so much to be said about the aspects of rivalry in the first place,
Yes.
and not just rivalry, but relationships. Because in the Star Trek universe, you have so many characters because just the length of it,
Yeah.
and the sprawling nature of having multiple series that lasted for years, and and a lot of the episodes many of the episodes, in my opinion, were very character driven. So
Yes.
they relied on the richness of the character and the drawing out the peculiar nature of the character and things that were specific to them and things that put them in conflict with other characters that produced inevitably rivalries and antagonistic relationships, right? So when you have the really direct rivalries, like Q
Mm-hmm.
and anybody Q interacts with, basically.
Yes.
But you also have things like Cisco and Picard, as a rivalry. If you want
Yes.
to think about that, right? Or you could think about it just for one episode, but Data and Data lore. You know,
Well, it wasn't for more than one episode, though, if you
was that?
think about it, because we
But
had
it was
Data
only,
Lore
yeah.
when they were in the same ship together.
That's the one I
But
was
you
thinking of.
also have brothers. You
Oh
also
yeah, yeah, yeah.
have
You're right.
you
You're
also
right.
have Descent.
One and two.
So it's there is a rivalry, and especially you see it in brothers when they're talking. Then the two of them are talking to Sung.
I had forgotten about that episode completely.
That was one of some of Brent Spiner's most fantastic work.
Yeah, that
Being
actually was.
Sung and then being Data and then being
Yeah.
Lore. And I am not less perfect than Lore. I am not less perfect than Lore. It's just,
I think he had a lot of fun with that, actually.
he did. Yeah, he actually said he did
Such a
in one of
terrific
the
actor.
interviews. Yeah. But
But anyway,
it's
Data and Lores is another example of what I'm talking about. So when you say rivalry, you really almost have to say relationship, that wasn't like a buddy
yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
And the other thing I love, just to mention about Data Lord, that was the, I don't know if it's the origin of Shut Up Wesley, but
It is.
it is
It is the
absolutely
origin of Shut Up Wesley.
anything that emphasizes Shut Up Wesley makes me happy. So
Yeah,
uh,
it is
I thought I
definitely
remembered
the
that. I thought I
yeah.
because it's when, and even Beverly Crusher says it, right?
Yeah, she does because he's Wesley's on the bridge and he's bitching that nobody's listening to him and Picard goes, "Shut up, Wesley." And
Yes,
then he
yes,
carries
that's
on
right. Yeah,
and then freaking Crusher turns to him and goes, "Shut up, Wesley."
yeah, yeah. Shut up, Wesley.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I remembered that. But at my age, sometimes I crisscross things. And anyway, so just some of the richness, interesting stuff. So those are a few of the ones that were in my mind.
But yeah, like before we went live, I mentioned Cisco and Eddington.
Yes, Cisco and
And
Eddington.
that
Cisco and lots of people, actually.
Yeah, but Eddington, I think, really was the one that kind of drove Cisco closest.
When you got to know Eddington a little bit too.
Yeah, Yeah, you really did. You got to know that he's this like flagrant dramatist who is obsessed with showmanship and like he's and you really like when he first comes on and the way that DS9 writers did this was brilliant. You made it like you kind of didn't like Eddington because he was an ass to Odo.
Right. Right.
And then you kind of like you're like okay, I guess he's here now, and you kind of like put up with Eddington, and then he pulls what he pulls for the Maquis, and you're like, I knew it, I knew he was an asshole,
Right.
right? Like it's that
Now I hate him.
now I really hate him, right?
Right. Exactly. Yep.
And you kind of get that feeling with Cisco because Cisco he even says it while he's in the gym and he's boxing and he's talking to Dax. He goes, I served dinner to this man. You know, I had him at my table. I thought he was on my side and he got to me. He beat me. Right? And it was a really interesting insight into Cisco's character that he has the ability to almost throw a temper tantrum when he's beaten, but it's a justified temper. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a justified fit that
Yep.
Cisco is throwing because he's, when you're a commanding officer and somebody pulls that crap, it's on you.
Try this quote out from Eddington speaking to Cisco. I know you. I was like you once, but then I opened my eyes. Open your eyes, Captain. Why is the Federation so obsessed with the Maquis? We've never harmed you, and yet we're constantly arrested and charged with terrorism. Starships chase us through the Badlands, and our supporters are harassed and ridiculed. Why? Because we've left the Federation, and that's the one thing you can't accept. Nobody leaves paradise. Everybody should want to be in the Federation. Hell, you even want the Kardashians to join. You're only sending them replicators because one day they can take their rightful place on the Federation Council. In some ways, you're even worse than the Borg.
Ooh.
At least they tell you about their plans for assimilation. You're more insidious. You assimilate people, and they don't even know it. That was excellent writing for a fully fleshed out character who wasn't the lead character. And I just love that about Star Trek. I love that about DS9. I think they did that maybe even better than TNG.
And he's and the thing about Eddington that makes him so hateful is that he's not wrong.
No, none of that's wrong. Everything he said there has an element of truth to it.
Yeah. And it's the uncomfortableness of fuck, he's right, but he's still a piece of garbage.
Right. Yeah. I hate that an asshole is speaking the good message, but there you go.
Yeah.
And
that was brilliant writing.
Yes.
That was brilliant writing, the way they wrote and the way they drove Cisco almost to
distraction
and almost turned him into a really nasty guy. Like he basically fucked the biosphere of a planet.
Yes.
To prove a point because of Eddington. Like that is so un-Starfleet, it's not even funny.
That's good drama is what that is.
It is good drama.
That's people criticize me for being a Star Trek fan because that's unserious,
Yeah.
Bullshit. That's as good as anything that was ever written on TV.
Agreed. Hello, Functional.
Hey kids, sorry I got caught in the holodeck.
Ooh, it's okay. I can understand. The holodeck's a fun place.
I've just been late to everything all week. It's been one of those weeks,
And we were just talking about...
I think you should talk to Counselor Choi about your holodeck.
Yeah.
He's been running the 6 of 9 porn programs again.
Shut up, Scott! Actually, I've been running that one that Quark had about Kira.
Oh.
Yeah.
Speaking of rivalries,
Fuck the Maquis.
Yeah, we were just talking about Cisco and Eddington.
oh my God, pushing him to the limit of almost becoming a war criminal.
Yeah, right? That's what I was just saying.
Just came out of her mouth.
He literally destroyed a planet just to prove a point to Eddington. Like,
Well, yeah, to make it purely a toxic environment to human beings while leaving it safe for the Cardassians, just to say to the Maquis, you know what? You want to play games? We'll play games.
yeah.
It was scary because Avery Brooks really made me question my faith and my trust in Cisco as a character.
Right. And you could even see it in his crew, because he's like, because Worf is like, you want me to do what?
Yeah.
like even when Worf is sitting there going, are you sure?
Yeah, because
You
he
know?
thought he was at the beginning still thinking very tactically. Okay, so Cisco wants to fire torpedoes, but they're gonna have shitty guidance. I don't understand quite what's going. And then he tells him, and Worf's like, "Yeah, well, I can't say no to this order, but damn, man, that's
Yeah.
cold."
Like, even for me, that's yeah.
Because there was no honor in it. There's no honor
there's
in
no
biological
honor in that.
warfare like that.
No, there isn't. Which is it was just fascinating to watch the lengths that Eddington drove Cisco to.
Oh, for sure. Whose pick was that? That was a good one.
That was mine.
Oh, of course.
And of course, I think before we get into like picks and stuff, we have to mention honorable mention Q and Picard.
Oh, of course.
Now, Prospero, or I can't remember
You
if it was
hit
Prospero.
me.
I can't remember if it was Prospero that said, could you classify that as a rivalry or as a bromance? But
Picard never hit me.
I definitely think it was a rivalry between those two, because it wasn't just about the ship, and it wasn't just about Q fucking with his crew. It was about Q and his view of humanity, I think.
Yes, you are. I think you're absolutely right.
Yep.
Looked at from Q's point of view, he looks down on everything because his capabilities are greater than anybody or anything else's.
Yeah.
He's effectively set up as a deity type of character, a Superman without kryptonite, who, his biggest enemy is boredom.
Yeah.
And when he gets bored, he gets weird. And
Yes.
that's his whole shtick, essentially. And weird things in space are bad for starships. And
Yes.
so that's the axis of uncomfortableness with Picard. And Picard, who is that most orderly of men.
Very rigid, yeah.
Very,
Yeah,
yes.
is absolutely just taken apart by this. And the writers, to their credit, just, I don't think they really mind it for anywhere near as much as they did. They showed a lot of restraint, not going to the Q well as often as it was probably tempting to.
Yeah.
Because you could use him for anything. Got a flat spot in your plot? Have Q drop by. Ta-da! Chaos ensues. Plot gets weird. Weird tie-ins with the plot that was getting boring suddenly make that plot interesting. Why? Because Q was there.
Yeah.
And then have multiple resolutions, and voila, you have an episode. And they didn't rely on him much, but instead treated him like a guest star.
And that was good.
And that was good. They didn't overuse him, because if he had been overused, that's what we would be talking about was,
Yep.
How they wore that concept out and how we were sick of it.
And they managed
We hate
to
you as much as Wesley.
Yeah, and you're totally right about that, because they managed to stretch him out through all the series.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, Worf,
Whereas-
growl
where-
for me. Show me you still care.
Exactly.
Like just those perfect little one-liners
Yeah.
to just spice up the dialogue, spice up the arc du jour,
Yeah. Or
the problem of the day.
we'll have a trial.
Well, I think in Voyager they really hit it on the Kathy really hits it on the nail on the head in saying we remind you of some point at which the Q existed.
Yeah.
And you take that looking back through the DS9 interaction and the multiple TNG interactions, and you're like, yeah, because he did do this stuff to show humanity they're vulnerable, to help humanity without giving them a handout, teaching them to fish instead of giving them that fish.
Yeah.
Perfect example, the example with the Borg. If Q hadn't done that, I think the Federation would have been assimilated. The Alpha Quadrant would have been assimilated. They would have had
probably, yeah.
Yeah, so he does these things at the end of TNG with the whole time going backwards sort of thing, the anomaly that ages backward. He's trying to save again humanity, but instead of saying, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna fix it," or Picard, here's how you fix it. He's gonna be like, "Here's a situation, Jean-Luc. Now, what are you gonna do about it?"
Mm-hmm.
Testing us while also making us a better species as a whole. And that only feeds into the rivalry of that playful banter back and forth while, life is still on the line.
Yeah. Cannibalistic Wizard says Q acts like a god but he's a derp when he's bored, and he's almost always bored, it seems. Well, there's a few, like with Q who, when he throws them at the Borg, I don't think that was because he was bored. I think Q has a soft spot for, because that's what the female Q says to him, right? That he has a soft spot for these creatures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's got this thing for humans. And
he even wanted... Oh, sorry.
He wants to see humans succeed, but he's like that parent that wants to see their kids succeed, but doesn't want to give them everything.
Yeah.
Right? So he'll, when he'll throw the Enterprise in the path of a Borg cube. That's his way of teaching that's his way of teaching the kid not to lay there when they fall, right? He's got a weird method, but he's just trying to show humanity how they can rally, basically.
And he sees something in humanity more than just what they might have been many millennia ago, the Q as a species.
Yeah.
But again, in Voyager, they kind of, give you little nuggets of what the Q are beyond what we've already established, in that, he wants to inject human DNA into the Q. He wants to have a kid with Janeway, or God only knows why, but to inject the human condition into the Q to make them less bored.
Yeah.
I think. Is it less bored? Something.
To revitalize them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about all this, Hammer?
Well,
there's Hammer.
Hammer's here. I'm just listening. You guys are having a great conversation. I always wonder why Q went after Janeway myself. I mean, Janeway's got leadership abilities and all that kind of stuff, and there's a lot about her that's good, but if you're Q, why aren't you going after 7 of 9?
Yeah.
Why isn't everybody going?
No,
or at least Cass, come on.
I would have, if I was Q, definitely would have gone after 7 of, because 7 of 9 is eons more intelligent than Janeway is. And not just because of her Borg.
No, she's just natively.
She's just intelligent.
Yeah, she's just smart. You're exactly right.
And she's
look at her
human.
parents.
Cass isn't human. She's still human, and she's a physical model too. It's like almost a foot taller than Janeway. I mean, put him into a physical fight. Who's going to survive that?
Oh, 7 of 9 would kill Janeway.
Of course. So I mean, I don't understand why he went for Janeway. Maybe it's just because he likes captains. He always seems to go after captains. Obviously, he went after Picard. He went after Cisco.
Yeah.
he's got a thing for Katniss. So maybe that's his deal. But
do you think he had a latent homosexual attraction to Picard?
Well, I think he transcends that.
I think it's more of because of his. I think it's authority figures.
Yeah, you're right.
Q doesn't like like you see how he behaves when he's dealing with other Q and they're trying to take a position of authority over. He doesn't like it, right? So when he sees a human authority figure and like he just tends to fuck with them because he knows they
bridles at
authority.
Yeah. And even when he's tracking down the Q that they broke out of the prison, you kind of get this sense that he hates himself for having to be the authority figure.
Yeah, which is why I think he ended up giving him the hemlock.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think it's because I think he said what he. I think it was that that Q reminded him of how he used to be. Yes, I think that's because he said that's why. But I also think it's because, in his perverse way, he felt bad because he remembers being what Quinn called the irrepressible Q. Mm-hmm. And then he had to take a position of authority, which he hates authority. Which is why he kind of dumped Junior off on Janeway and was like, okay, teach him how to be a good Q. I have no idea how to do that. But I think part of the reason he gave Quinn the hemlock was because he felt bad for his authoritative position.
Yeah, I mean, he finished doing the job that he needed to do for the Continuum, and then he got back to who he is as an individual.
Yeah.
In the Continuum, and saw, like you said, saw a lot of himself in the other Q, and also sympathized with him because he probably realized, you know what, in another millennia, I might get that bored that I want to just end it all because I've seen it all, done it all. Even got to bed Jean-Luc.
That was so funny that when Picard rolls over and Q is like, morning.
Hi.
He's always got a bedroom scene somewhere.
Oh, it's so funny. And Tapestry illustrates the rivalry between Picard and Q just perfectly. I refuse to believe you are God. The universe is not so badly designed.
Oh man, those lines between just the dialogue between him and Picard are just masterful every time.
Oh yeah.
Every episode, from Q to what was the last one?
All Good Things.
All Good Things. Yeah.
Let us pray. Let us do no such damn thing.
He was at the beginning and the end of TNG, which I thought that
was just perfect.
Perfect.
That's absolutely perfect. You're right.
It might like the series itself might have sort of stumbled a little bit in the later seasons, just being a little kind of bland, but it wasn't
coming for you. Functional.
Oh, gee, sorry. I live next to a police station, an ambulance depot, and a fire station.
Fun.
I'll just mute myself.
Functional's in trouble. No.
Coming to take me away, haha.
Napoleon the 13th.
Coming to take me away, haha. They're coming to take me away.
Remember when you ran away and I got on my knees and begged you not to go because I'd lose my mind?
Well.
Well.
I love that song.
Me too. Me too.
So yeah, it's just that they did such a good job with Q and Picard, and let's see what other interesting ones can we think of.
Oh well, going back to the original series, obviously the rivalry for Kirk's attention between Bones and Spock.
Yeah, Prospero brought that up, and that was a good bring up on her part.
I didn't think you would have brought up the trifecta. I thought, but I was hoping that you were going to chime in with something from the TOS skep, because I was really curious, because the first thing that comes to mind, is definitely the Bones versus Spock kind of dichotomy. but I didn't think of it in the way that you phrased it, which is very interesting.
And it's true. The more you think about it, right, the more it makes sense that that's what they're doing. That they're vying for Kirk's attention.
It's exactly what that is. If you've raised as many children as I have, you know what this looks like.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. I guess it was since Prospero mentioned it on the stream the other day that and we were I was thinking about it after that, and it dawned on me that that really was a competition for attention, and I think they may have even written it with that in mind. As you go back and you see Bones just repeatedly trying to goad Spock, and Spock usually gets the last word, with something that flies back on Bones and makes him look silly or emotional or whatever, but occasionally makes Spock look a little bit vain.
Yeah.
And sort of silly in his own right, which you sense that Spock hates.
Yes.
Just really hates. And that's the victory for Bones. But the object of all of that is the approval and attention of their best friend Kirk, because they both want to be his best friend. Spock can deny that, but it's belied by every action that he takes. And especially when Kirk comes back from the dead on one or two occasions, and Spock looks at him and says, "Jim," like that, and then he
goes, "Oh shit."
Yeah, then he goes back into full Vulcan character. I mean, it's good to see you, Captain.
The Doomsday Machine is one of those.
Yes, Doomsday. Yes, absolutely.
It's definitely one of those when Kirk takes the ship into the machine, I think is what happens. He takes the other ship, and they think he's dead, and then he comes back and Spock, "Jim! It's good to see you, Captain."
Yes, exactly. So that's one from TOG. What about from Discovery? What do you think is the best rivalry in Discovery?
The fans versus the show?
Yes. I agree.
And I say that so deadpan because it's so true, because the people who really have a problem with that show are people who have been fans since the TOS, TNG eras and have watched all of Trek. And the people who like it are the nouveau crowd who are like, "Oh, this is cool space fun."
My dad keeps going, "Discovery is awesome." And one day I finally looked at him and I said, "Dad, the only reason you're saying that is because your heart was broken by TLJ." And he goes, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Because he's a Star Wars guy, right? He is such a Star Wars crazy guy. Like, he's got vintage figures and in their packaging still. He's got a 3D Millennium Falcon puzzle that he built. He's
nice.
He read me the Young Jedi Knights series when I was growing up. Like, he's a huge Star Wars guy.
So he must love the direction of the
and then TLJ
of the new Mary Sue.
And freaking he's just, and I'm like, that is the only reason. I'm like, you are holding on to something, anything, please God. So now you say Discovery is awesome.
The Lost Jedi.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, no, the Kirk's Spock McCoy trifecta is a very interesting dichotomy. And what I would say also, Eric Kai brought up Enterprise, and I would almost posit the rivalry between humanity and Vulcan in Enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Especially Captain Archer, Admiral Ross versus Saval.
Yes.
The representative of the Vulcans, the Vulcan ambassador on Earth. He's constantly demeaning and talks down to humans
Yeah.
and constantly tries to hold them back because he sees them as being Vulcans, 2,000 or 20,000 years earlier or whatever, when they actually didn't suppress their emotions and were very violent and very chaotic as a species. That's a very good one.
Yeah. It's you find
Jesus.
you find gotta love living in the big city.
Life in the big city.
Yep. You gotta so it's so true, and you see it when T'Pol comes on board, before she really warms up to the crew. She's even very standoffish.
Oh yeah.
Turns up her nose at the human. Literally, she thinks they smell.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do.
Well, yeah. We kind of do.
Yeah. And she slowly learns, that she progresses as a character from somebody who was thrust in a position nobody wanted.
Yeah.
But they needed somebody with a high enough rank to serve as first officer and still be able to have those lines of communication back to the Vulcan High Command and the ambassadorial sect, whatever they're called. But she learns that, no, they're not like us when we were out of control of our emotions. They've gone the other route and they've learned to harness them for productive means.
Yeah.
Their wanderlust and their creativity has actually helped them, not hindered them.
Yeah.
With their invention, with their but they still need to teach them. They're not willing to give humanity everything. Like T'Pol doesn't just say, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, you guys are ready." No, she still has to still somewhat temper them in being like, you can't just rush in head first, imposing human values onto the galaxy.
Yeah.
And
Which
there's
is kind
constantly
of what Archer
that.
wants to do.
Yeah.
That's Archer kind of grew on me, but I do find that he's very much he kind of embodies a bit of the Western world about how, we just feel like we should go in and
Take over.
make everything better for those poor people over there.
Which is code for make it like us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Well, he definitely is a human supremacist for a while.
That's America.
Yeah.
It is. I mean,
It is.
It is analogous, yeah.
Speaking the truth, it's that's what America is. Love us or hate us, but we, and the most American Americans are Texans. We really embody that ideal to an almost silly extent in Texas, and it's just who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was kind of an allegory for what was going on when Enterprise was put out? Because Enterprise was
without
put
being
out
ham-fisted
during the beginnings of the Iraq War.
Yeah.
I don't think it was done intentionally, but it ends up being such a perfect fit that serendipity is a thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes shit just falls where it's supposed to fall. And I tend to think it's more that than anything that was planned.
Mm.
But that's just an opinion. I could be convinced.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right too, because it is a common human.
It's not, shoved down our throats or anything, but it's definitely
winds up being extremely apt.
Yeah.
It just does. I think that's an interesting recognition.
And it's excuse me. It's a good learning moment for Archer when he's on trial on Kronos. That he has to learn, him being human and his human values, his American values, don't matter for shit. Yeah. You have to play the game on their turf by their rules.
Yeah.
Or, in certain situations, you can lose your life. You can cause the loss of life of others.
Oh yeah.
Which happens so many times in the show. Rewatching it now, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe they put that into the show. They don't graphically depict it, but they're like, yeah, that entire planet was wiped out because Archer was an idiot.
You just pointed out a very interesting thing, functional, and everybody get ready to take a drink because I'm about to tell a Navy story, but it's not one of my Navy stories. It is a Navy story. It's the story of a little boat, and it was a boat, not a ship. It was an intelligence boat that strayed into North Korean waters, the USS Pueblo, and was taken by the North Koreans, captured by the North Koreans. It's still in Pyongyang harbor.
Oh, wow.
And or not Pyongyang, but it's in one of the harbors there. Maybe it is Pyongyang on the river there. I'm not sure. Anyway, it is a symbol of one of North Korea's rare triumphs, military triumphs over the West. And the commander, Lloyd Bucher, when he was taken prisoner, at first he thought, well, you boys are in a heap of trouble. He kind of had that attitude.
Yeah.
He was soon disabused of that when they just started beating the shit out of him and didn't even want him to answer questions. They just beat the shit out of him.
They were just like, you exist. We wish you not to.
Right. Well, we're going to make you willing to say and do anything, which is what they do. And they subjected him to that. And that's what happens when you have that, inflated American, ethnocentric, we are the center of the universe idea.
Yeah.
That, and I think that's kind of what Functional was talking about, that you go in there and you're disabused of that notion very quickly when the rules of the game are suddenly very different than what you have become used to and what you think the actual norms of the universe are.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Didn't mean to kill the conversation.
No,
I just thought it's an interesting parallel with something that happened on Earth.
No, I just had to briefly mute myself. There's another fucking siren. There must have been something going down because I also live near one of the major highways, so there must have been something going on.
Eric Kai brought up in chat Zefram Cochrane versus Henry Archer, which I would have liked to see. Functional said in chat he would have liked to see more of, but I would have liked to see more of that as well.
Mm-hmm. There's only so much you can get, especially when Enterprise as a product was sort of shaky from the get-go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that one of my favorite rivalries was it was kind of tied because I wanted to do Quark, and it would be Quark versus like the Federation versus the station personnel. But I actually settled on going something more simpler and putting the Archer-Shran rivalry in discussion because that's a very classical befriending your enemies sort of story between the two, but just like it must have been the combination of the acting and the writers, which is common amongst Trek, that the two of them, Archer and Shran, just they almost get to the level of like Bones and Kirk by the end of it.
Yeah,
you really get that feeling. They're throwing the jabs, but they're still best of friends. And he even helps Shran get over this hundreds of years of bad blood between the Andorians and the Vulcans, while, like we were just saying, with Archer versus the Vulcans, he's fighting that battle as well. He's fighting so many different battles where these people aren't his enemy, but they are.
Yeah.
He's trying to not fight the war, but end it.
Well, and it's really funny when he's talking to Shran about. He's like, listen, I know they piss me off too. Right?
Yeah.
He's like, trust me, I get it. This one right, and he's pointing it to Paul. He's like, this one right here, she's freaking annoying. She's just going off, right? Like, it's great. Like, and you get to the end of the episode, and pink skin almost becomes a diminutive term.
Yeah, just a term of endearment. Yeah, yeah. It's like his little pet name for Archer at that point, because he stops calling. You'll notice in later appearances he stops saying pink skins and just refers to Archer as pink skin.
Yeah.
And then eventually he even catches himself. He calls him pink. Oh, human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, that's such a perfect rivalry turned into something better.
Exactly.
Transformation, yes.
Yeah, yeah, and then it transfers on to when we start getting Tellarites on the show, but because of the cancellation, it was kind of compressed. Yeah. The birth of the Federation and the involvement of the Tellarites, because they could have done an entire season on now trying to navigate their way politically and socially around Tellarites, because they've done the Vulcans, they've done the Andorians, and now Archer's got to do this dance with the Tellarites. And you've seen his interaction with the bounty hunter guy, and then the ambassador, where he goes full Tellarite. You know, he's ripping into him. He's giving him 1-4, like some real verbal jabs, which is their way of just being friendly and cordial. I think the rivalries
the first Federation was humans with Tellarites, Rigelians, Vulcans,
and Andorians.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's what I thought I remembered. Okay.
You are correct, sir.
It's been a long time.
Your mention of Quark reminded me of one that I wanted to bring up, and that's Quark and Odo.
Oh, absolutely.
Quark and Odo was fantastic.
It was just a lovely antagonistic relationship.
And it starts when Cisco in the very first or very second episode of the series, where Cisco is grilling Quark over something stupid. And then he leaves, and Odo goes, "And to think, I thought I wasn't going to like him." You know, it's just... But the best part of that rivalry is, and I can't remember the name of the episode, but it's the one where Quark and Odo they're on like a shuttle together, and they end up having to crash land on a planet.
Yes.
Oh. And they have to go up the mountain to put up the transmitter.
They have to go up the mountain to put up the transmitter. Yeah. Oh. That was the best way to show up the rivalry.
Yeah, especially because it's at a time...
The Ascent, right?
The Ascent, yeah.
The Ascent, yeah.
And it's at a time where Odo is a humanoid. He's not a shapeshifter at that point.
Yeah.
So there's that very vulnerable... like, they both have to survive, but up until then, they've been really at each other's throats. It hasn't been the later seasons of jovial sort of back and forth, cat and mouse, hey, this is fun. Okay, you're not going to kill anyone? Okay, then I'm cool sort of dichotomy, where this is still very early on in their frenemy-ship.
Well, there's even a scene where Quark is just laying there, I hate you!
Yeah. And it's funny how that rivalry, like when I was first mentioning it, translates to the rest of the Starfleet crew and Kira.
Yeah. Like
when Kira and Odo become a thing, she gets involved in the rivalry. Yeah. She sees what Odo does and how he loves playing the cat and sometimes the mouse.
Yeah. Exactly. It's great. Like
one of the dialogue moments in that episode. I'm just going to read it real quickly. It's just a few lines. I hate this transmitter. I hate this mountain. And most of all, I hate the Orion Syndicate for stranding us here. I think we both know who's really to blame. Don't try and blame this on me, Constable. It was your job to get me to Inferno Prime safely. Well, you never told me the Orion Syndicate was after you. You never asked. If I had, would you have told me the truth, or would you have lied? Like you lie about everything. Have I ever told you how much I hate that smug, superior attitude of yours? Have I ever told you how much I hate your endless lying, your pathetic greed, your idiotic little schemes? Well, I hate... What do you hate? You! That's fine with me, because I hate you too. You're nothing but a petty thief. You're an arrogant prude, lecher, freak, fraud, fascist, Failure. That's just one of the great comic scenes in that entire series.
And there's so and it's great because it's comic, but they're in dire straits.
I know they're
right?
they're about to lose their lives, and they're just letting all the hate out, letting the poison out before the end comes.
It's great. You just and Rene Aubergenois and what the hell is his name?
Armin Shimmerman.
Armin Shimmerman are just both fantastic actors. And
that cast really, they found gold in some of those people.
They really did.
Platinum.
And Scribe brings up, I think this will be probably the one to end the stream on, Riker versus Jellicoe.
Oh, sure.
Which was a short one, but man, was it was nasty and
intense. Yeah.
And does anyone else kind of feel like Riker was being kind of I didn't like Jellicoe, but Riker was kind of being a bit of a baby.
Oh, certainly.
Because Jellicoe, Jellicoe was being an ass, and yes, he was mishandling the Cardassians, and yes, he was gambling with Picard's life. But all he wanted was an extra duty shift. And Riker went, "What? An extra duty shift?" And he got all pissed off.
Would Riker have been the baby if Jellicoe wasn't the asshole?
Probably not. I think it was probably the way Jellicoe went about it.
I disagree.
You do?
I think Riker is a bit of a baby because throughout the series they constantly have to show from other different rivalries, like with Shelby, how Riker gets lazy. He's on the flagship. He's the second most well-respected officer serving on a Starfleet vessel, but he's content sitting on his laurels, being number two to Picard.
Yeah.
And just so when somebody comes in to sort of change that dynamic, to sort of stir the water a little bit, he gets really cranky. Riker does.
Yeah.
Riker's playing the long game. That's why he is where he is and what he's doing. He's playing the long game. He wants the Enterprise.
Yeah.
He doesn't want the Melbourne. He doesn't want the Titan. He wants the Enterprise. And the best way to do that is to stay on the Enterprise.
Yep.
So he knows that.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, but he still gets very comfortable in his position.
Yeah.
Well, if you get good at what you're doing, yeah, you're going to get comfortable. But that's not a bad thing.
No, not necessarily, but when it causes you to have such friction, like Jellicoe was a commanding officer. He was a captain, Riker's still a commander, and yes, you do have to have some sort of challenging to your CEO, because that's what a good first officer will do, is sometimes play the devil's advocate or question the captain's orders, but not publicly, not like a petulant child. And I feel that is kind of, I mean, it's rare for Riker because he is such a good officer, but I do think it was there.
I think Riker is careful, is confident enough in himself to be able to correct captains.
Yeah.
And when you have an arrogant asshole in charge, you have to point that out to the arrogant asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something a lot of first officers would do. A lot of first officers would just simply snap to.
Yeah.
And let that guy continue to terrorize the rest of the organization. And Riker's not going to have that. He's like, look, I might just be the first officer, but you have to exist in this organization, and you can't keep doing this because someone's going to murder you in your sleep.
Yeah. Well, even Picard tried to tell him, right? To tell Jellicoe, like, this is a good crew, right? Just let them do their thing. And Jellicoe basically was like, "Shut up, old man."
I gotta shake up this ant farm and see what happens.
Yeah.
Do you all understand the implication of running a 4-shift rotation versus 3? It's actually in naval parlance that's called standing 1 and 4 instead of standing 1 and 3.
Is that detrimental to suddenly do that, or
no,
the way
here's when you do
wanted?
it. There is a time to do both. Okay. When you are at sea and doing operations, or you're in combat, you'll stand 1 and 3.
Okay.
The reason for that is when you stand 1 and 3, you have the same number of people on the ship. Okay. But standing a duty watch means that for 24 hours, you have basically 1.5 jobs. And during that 24 hours, you will stand 1 and possibly 2 4-hour watches in addition to your regular duties. Okay, that's what standing duty means in naval and Army and Air Force parlance.
Mm-hmm.
So standing 1 and 4 is literally easier on the crew. It spreads out the work, okay, over more time. Whereas standing 1 and 3 spreads the work out of more crew.
Right.
Okay. The crew has to work harder in 1 on 3. So Jellicoe was coming in and say, why are you guys standing 1 and 3? You're not war. You're not, you should be standing 1 and 4. That's better for morale, gives everybody a little bit of an easier day, and the work still gets done because you don't have the mission critical stuff that you have, when you're in combat. Mm-hmm. And Riker's a hard charger. Riker says, no, we're standing 1 and 3. I've got a bug up my ass about that because I want, and the other time you stand 1 and 3 is when you're doing really intensive training on the crew and you want the crew to get amazing. You want to get them really up to speed, really efficient in doing their jobs. And the way to do that is to do it a lot, which, standing 1 and 3, you literally work harder. Right. You literally.
Well, then that makes Riker correct because Jellicoe is looking for a fight.
Correct, in my opinion. I agree with you.
Yeah, right. Jellicoe is looking for a fight. So if you're standing 1 and 3 when you're going to be at war, that's the right place to be.
Here's how I'll tell you, as a former naval officer, here's how that would have felt to me. This asshole comes on board. I'm getting this crew whipped into shape. They're looking amazing, and what happens in 1 and 3, morale goes down for a while at first, and then it rises, and it can get to really super fantastic levels once the crew gets some self-confidence and they get good at what they're doing. And those are the things he's thinking about inculcating in his crew. He's got this amazing momentum going, and the crew's starting to feel good about themselves. This guy comes in and says, stand down. You just relax a little bit. Let's take it easy. We're going to stand 1 and 4. And not only that, I'm going to shove it down your throat in the most officious, bossy, asshole-ish, full brass metal jacket, way that any asshole admiral could do. And Riker, the hard charger, says, no, I'm not having any part of that. You're not going to run my ship. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That's what, to me, was going on.
And
that makes sense.
Not only did Jellicoe do that, but he showed up and was like, I'm going to redo the captain's ready room. Because he took the lionfish out, right? He took Picard's lionfish out of the ready room. He was like telling Deanna, you have to dress a certain, he was just all over the,
Oh, he was,
he's marking his territory.
Yeah, he was marking his territory. I was just going to say urinating on the fire hydrant. That's just exactly what I was going to say.
Because it's a new captain. He's top dog on the ship. It's now his turn to say, okay, my ship.
Yeah.
That never happens in the Navy, by the way.
So basically what it comes down to is he was doing all the right things, but in completely the wrong way to do them.
I don't think standing 1 and 4 was a judgment call, but in any case, he should have come in and said, why you got these guys standing 1 and 3? Are they getting tired? That's what he should have said. And they would have had the discussion, is this a good thing? Have you considered standing 1 and 4? And you talk it through. You do not come in and just say, we'll be standing 1 and 4.
Yeah.
Just don't do that.
Especially to your XO, who you want to communicate your thought process and the reasons why you're not all the time, obviously, but most of the time, daily operations.
That's a great point. The other thing was Jellicoe acted like he'd never been an XO before. And that's the great thing about being promoted to captain is you have served as an XO. You know that is literally the hardest job on the ship. Period. Dot.
Yeah.
Nothing else, even in its class. It is absolutely the toughest job on the ship.
Mhm.
Being the old man is a piece of cake compared to being
I
the
can see
XO.
that.
Because XO has to
Captain's
get
the
everything
voice,
done.
XO's the hand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The captain is the kindly, gentle, everybody's dad manager, who everybody loves and everybody would die for. The XO is the guy you fear. You fucking fear him.
Mm-hmm.
I think the crew of the Enterprise lucked out having Picard and Riker as their commanders, because I wouldn't fear Riker as a first officer. I would feel that I could go to him as, like, not as a friend or anything like that, right? But I feel like I could probably go, Commander, this is something that's going wrong in my department.
Sure.
Yes, but if
you don't jump the chain of command though.
No,
Yeah.
but if that had, if I had to jump that, like, if I had to go above my department head, right?
Right.
If
The best
listening.
way to do that always is to drag your department head along. Say, I'm going to go see the XO. Do you want to come with me? That's, and I actually did that once.
Which means I'm going to see the XO. You better come with me.
Well, you and I disagree about this, and I feel so strongly about it. I think you're wrong. I think you've misjudged this, and that was literally what the situation was. And my XO, by the way, if you want to know how it worked out for me, my XO basically said, Nancy, I agree with you, but we're going to do it your department head's way.
Oh, that sucks.
And that's was one of those things, and we were never any more than coldly civil to each other.
I bet.
For the rest of the time I worked for that guy.
I bet you.
It was a difficult few months.
But BP, you better watch yourself around Riker if you were the problem. They exemplified that a lot, because don't forget, the bridge crew, those are his buddies.
Yeah.
Geordi, Data, Troy, Worf, those are his friends and his comrades.
Yeah.
His subordinates, he did come down hard on. Remember the
hard.
whole
Lower
Juniors
Decks.
episode,
Yeah.
Lower Decks.
Yeah.
I mean, those were some problem people, and he was hard and firm with them. And in other episodes, throwaway scenes where he was an XO. And that's what I think made the character really good, is that you got past his friendly veneer with his buddies and charismatic XO, but you also got to see every now and then that he was a true XO meant for the role.
When Commander in the turbo lift, when Shelby's like, "You're in my way, Commander," and he's like, "Oh, how sad for you."
Well, like Hammer said, he's playing the long game and he knows he can win.
Well, but it's interesting in the. I just looked up first officer duties on Memory Alpha, and it says in the 22nd, 23rd centuries, the first officer served as department head first, and the executive officer second. Okay, so similar to the second and third officer, and only took command when the captain left the bridge. As such, there was no first officer station as there would be in the 24th century, as the XO would alternate between the command chair and their station as department head. So on Federation starships, and this is different from the setup in at least the United States Navy and the Royal Navy for that matter. The XO, or number one, does not serve as a department head. He's had his department head tour probably on a different ship. And but has not he isn't in charge of a particular department.
Well, I think the department that they're referring to, Skep, is the bridge crew. Like that's the head of his department, operations.
That doesn't make sense.
No,
science officer. He was head of the science department.
Those are all duty stations. Okay, the people who stand watch on a bridge, the OD is likely to be an officer who comes from first division. He's a deck officer. Maybe comes from second division. He's a weapons guy. Maybe comes from third division. He's the fuel weasel. Maybe he's like me. Some supply corps officers. I was a supply corps officer who chose to stand bridge watches because I was good at that. I was okay at that stuff. I wasn't good. I was okay. And I was good enough to fill out the watch bill, so they liked having me there. But as a supply corps officer, as a staff officer, you are not required to stand bridge watches. Although it makes you very popular in the wardroom if you do, because you take some of the load off. Mm-hmm. The thing about the people who stand watch on the bridges, they all have other duties. That's what I was talking about, being in a duty section. When you come up for your day of duty, that's the day you will stand a bridge watch, and you will stand 4 hours as a helmsman, or 4 hours as the EOT operator, engine order telegraph operator, or 4 hours as the junior officer of the deck, or 4 hours as the officer of the deck. And the captain may or may not be there. Captain comes and goes. He's like a ghost. He ghosts in, sits in the captain's chair, ghosts out, and if he catches you sitting in the captain's chair, you put you in half. It's there's all kinds of charming stuff. But the people on the bridge are not a department as such. The officer of the deck might be the communications officer. He might be the navigator. He could be any of on my ship 21 officers.
But I mean, isn't he sort of like the head of like the culmination of all the departments, like engineering? There's when they're in the wardroom. He is
the boss in the org chart of the ship. You have the captain. He's over everybody. The person who reports to him administratively is the executive officer. And the executive officer administratively is in charge of the rest of the ship. Operationally, however, the number 2 on board a U.S. Navy ship is not the executive officer. It's the operations officer.
Oh.
The operations officer runs the war part, our prime mission, whatever that happens to be. My mission, it was to be ready to transfer fuel and stores and ammunition to other ships. And so the ops boss, which is what they call them, it has a department called operations, and operations has operational control over the guys in weapons, which is the second division, which is actually a deck division, which administratively reports up through the second division officer to the deck division officer, or usually it's referred to as the first lieutenant. You've heard of that from master and commander, maybe, and then up through the executive officer administratively.
So I was just like in terms of the enterprise,
there are 2 chains of command: administrative and operational. Now, the way that I understand things in Star Trek, everything is operational, and the administrative part of the ship seems to have been so automated and so trivialized that everybody's kind of in charge of their own administration. And you probably have junior officers to be in charge of resolving any problems that happen at that level.
Things changed in Trek, though, because in the original series, all the department heads reported directly to the captain. Yeah. They didn't go through the XO or Spock first officer, whatever you want to call him. They didn't go through him. They went directly to the captain.
Right.
But if you look at TNG, almost everything goes through Riker.
He's
unless Picard goes to the department head.
Yeah.
That's a big difference, because he'll say, Geordi, what do you think about this? Geordi doesn't offer stuff. When he does, he offers it to Riker.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, right. That's a great point. And here's another thing about Picard, although Kirk did this too. Both of them were really bad about jumping the chain of command down.
Yeah.
And that's kind of considered to be a no-no. You don't usually have the captain of the ship will say, "Nice day, ensign." "Yes, sir." And that's the extent of your conversation as an ensign.
But you got to remember, they're less military, more I don't know, less military.
They're much more like
less of that than
they're much more like USNS, like U.S. Naval Service, like the
Yeah.
AO
I can
type
see
of
that.
ship.
I find Janeway did a little bit less of that than the other two. I find that Chakotay was the one who was like,
Chakotay, the worst executive
with the
officer
face-
of all time.
All
But
time.
I feel like
I don't know who
Chakotay
you're
was
talking about.
more like if B'Elanna would talk to him, he'd be like, okay, I'll go tell the captain.
He worked for the lady captain.
Yeah. Is it the tattoo? 'Cause mine's bigger.
He got such a raw deal.
He did. He really did. Oh man. Well, I think that was a great talk. That brings us to an hour.
I can't
done
believe
an
it's been
hour.
an hour. This has been so much fun.
We'll have to start a DM conversation about our next week's topic.
Yes, ma'am.
But I would like to thank everybody for talking with me and thank the audience for joining. It's always great fun to talk Trek. And as I announced last week, the Blind and the Special is on hiatus right now because we're trying to figure out a better streaming time. Because Sunday at 10:30, everyone is streaming. So
Think about favorite alien civilizations for next week, maybe.
Ooh,
Just an idea. Just an idea.
that's an interesting one.
Well, that would be Ferengi for me.
Not.
Not.
So
I might have to pick the Okampa.
and of course, tune in for the coffee stream on Monday, and I will be doing lives over on the crazy Chinese app, TikTok. Also, remember to check out the link tree, which is in the description of the stream. You'll find all of my links there. We are reviving the OnlyFans, so yeah, check that out. And the merch, got mugs, got shirts, all that fun stuff. And of course, my other guests will be Skep and Functional. I think are on Minions tonight,
Yes,
Ma'am.
so go catch them over there. Hammer, how is your project coming for the Minions?
It's coming along. I have people that I need to get with still, but all the technical stuff has been taken care of. So it's just a
Awesome.
matter of getting the humans involved, and then we're ready
Top
to go to production.
Men.
Top men.
Top.
Top men.
Top.
Hammer's looking for top men.
So thank you
Not
for
bottom men.
Thank you for watching, everyone, and have a great rest of your Saturday. We'll see you all next week.
Bye, everybody.